very interesting. It was built in the 1920s by a very eccentric philanthropist called Andrew Friedman as a retirement home, listen to this, for formerly wealthy people that had lost all their money. Because he sincerely believed that the sensibilities of the rich shouldn't be trampled upon by the indignities of poverty. So to get into this home, you had to prove that you once had money and lost it, and you had to be over 60 years of age. You only had to have enough money for your burial, don't ask me why, and you had to demonstrate that you'd be a social part of the home, because it had extensive social, cultural committees, an opera committee, a gardening committee. It had a wood-paneled library, it had 2 ballrooms, it had a white glove dinner service served by staff from the 21 Club. And this home lasted from 1920 until 1980. It ran for 60 years. When Friedman died, his mother and sister kept up the bequest. It was then acquired by the Mid-Bronx Senior Service Council, which had intended to use it as an old home, but it never happened. And the building was abandoned for since the 80s to when we got it in 2012. So as we do with all our exhibitions, we began with a great deal of research into who Andrew Freeman was. He owned a baseball team. He was responsible for putting in the Lexington line. And we found yearbooks of all the residents, and we really got to try to get a sense of what was there and how it had operated within the community. It was also located on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx, which was built in the 20s as a kind of big European boulevard. A book called Boulevard of Dreams was written about it, and it was where the upwardly mobile people, professionals who'd made their money probably in the Lower East Side were moving up to come more into the country. And you'd arrive when you came to the Grand Concourse, and people measured their wealth by how close to the concourse they lived. And because of many sort of social factors, but essentially from the 50s to the 70s, the Bronx went into tremendous decline. It was redlined by the banks, which meant they didn't approve any future investment there. And in the 70s, you got the phenomena, the Bronx is burning, where landlords were setting fire to their properties to get the insurance money. So, you know, it's regarded as dangerous, certainly was regarded as dangerous, and certainly for Manhattanites, you know, not the place to go. And when I started this exhibition, started planning for this exhibition, somebody from the Bronx Museum, which is across the road, said to me, "Manon, you're really a little naive. Whatever you do, nobody will come." Well, there are 6 million people live in the Bronx, so that was enough of an audience for me. So this is the state of one of the bedrooms as we found it. I mean, it literally looked as though one day people had been said you're leaving. It was knee-deep in clothing, in old newspapers. The infirmary still had diapers and medicines in it. It was horrendous. So we had a whole team of volunteers cleaning it up. And this is a picture of, you know, halfway through. It was all, of course, all the paint and everything was falling from the floor. And this is the bedroom after we had cleaned it up. This is an artist called Crash. And we took over some 20 rooms in the house, 20 bedrooms of the former residents, and the grand reception rooms and the library. This was one of the former reception rooms. You know, we painted, we got money, the lights, those central lights were already in, but we put in all the gallery lights. And this is an example of one of the bedrooms that was transformed by a group called Howard Nossum, who are most often street artists. But again, it goes back to that history. They created a music studio, a recording studio, all those, oops, I want to go back, how's my pointer? Sorry. Technology also. All those cones that you see, you know, that sort of like the soundproofing, but they're made out of cardboard. The mirror the floor is mirrored. The table, which is that painted circle, is their tagline, which is life and death. And there was a clock ticking on the floor. So obviously it was referring both to the notion of an old home, but the Bronx was the place of the birth of hip hop. And so they had recreated this recording studio as a kind of homage to hip hop. There's Cheryl Pope installing her piece, which was an amazing wall made out of anniversary plate. And we also, I was talking earlier about Mel Chin. One of the things that I think has been part of No Longer's Empty success is that a lot of artists are wanting to work outside the institutional framework with either socially active art or relational art, relational aesthetics. The No Longer Empty model gives them tremendous opportunities to work in the community. So this was a project that we did with Mel Chin, and he spent 5 days on the streets of the Bronx with a film crew, asking people to send their messages to President Obama. And it was really, really moving piece. So you're seeing a still from it here, and he's talking about issues of veterans. But in the actual film, Mel had recorded the heartbeat of the people. So they spoke in, they gave the message which we recorded, and then they looked into the camera for 30 seconds, at which time we took their heartbeat. So the soundtrack was boom, 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 boom. And so what it did, first of all, it was very dramatically powerful, but it equalized the playing field so that people who were less or more articulate in front of the camera, less or more comfortable with English, all came over with equal dignity, and their text scrolled. And there were some amazing stories, I mean, of really the hardships that people live in their lives. So the film was edited, and it was screened on the opening night, and we had a premiere to which all the participants were invited. We sent them copies of the film, and then we sent the film to Obama, and he did not respond. I talked about that sense of welcome. This was a performance that was done at the opening of the Bronx, and of course we don't lay a red carpet down for every opening. But this was a performance that started in the subway, which is just on the corner of the building. And the performers were down in the subway with tuxedos and white gloves, escorting people through into the Andrew Freeman home. And this is some of the background research, as I mentioned, that we were doing. So this is a bank. This was actually our last exhibition in a bank in Long Island City in Queens. And this is a landmark building, but the inside of the bank, it had two incarnations. One as the Bank of America, which was, very much the gilded pillars and pilasters, and then it was taken over by the Chase Bank, who brought that kind of white modernist, bringing banking down to life. But again, this property had been empty for 20 years. And we call the exhibition, How Much Do I Owe You? Obviously, the most basic transaction, I buy a cup of coffee and ask how much I owe, but the theme of the exhibition was very much about that issues of exchange and value, how much we owe each other as human beings, as siblings, as workforce, etc. So we really asked the artists either to delve into the theme, or of exchange, etc., or interact with the architecture. So that was the bank during installation. And here's a former corridor that we put this fabulous piece by Ghost of the Dream. And what you're seeing here is the words trust, which is something a bank asks you to do. And it was swimming in a sea of bank advertising slogans. When we talk about site specificity, I'm going so away from my notes, but that's okay. One of the, again, exciting things that is offered by these unusual sites is the opportunity it gives to artists. This could never be done in a gallery. What you're seeing is an elevator shaft in that belt factory that you saw earlier. And the artist Giuseppe Stamponi, I met him in Venice and invited him to do a project, and that project didn't work out, but when he saw the elevator, he wanted to work there. So what you're seeing are lines from Dante's Inferno that are going up the shaft of the elevator. Could you show me again, and I'll just do the point? Anybody? Oh, got it. Okay. So these are lines. He painted all this himself by being on the top of the elevator shaft and it going up gradually. These beautiful Italian, sort of Latin letters. And the building had 3 stories. which he converted into heaven, hell, and purgatory. And there was a little neon sign to tell you where you'd arrived at. And the text referred to cycles from Dante's Inferno that dealt with that. The elevator shaft itself we carpeted in red and put a very Baroque style couch in there, and had cello music that was composed for the piece. So you rode Sharon's bark up through heaven, hell, and purgatory. But it's a great example of how epic work can be in these sites, because there are amazing opportunities of engaging with unusual architecture, unusual sites. And so when I talk about site specificity, I refer both to site, and to the research, and the artists are free to work in those boundaries. And about 3/4, I would say, of the work in each exhibition is commissioned, meaning that the artists do engage with the site, with the research. This was another project that we did in Governor's Island. Andrea Mastrovito created from cutouts all the animals and birds and fauna that would have been originally part of Governor's Island. A fabulous installation by Karina Kaipikan, looking at the shirts that the admirals would have worn when it was a naval base. Governor's Island was where the troops left during the Second World War to go into Normandy. And this is a wonderful piece. So you see here, this is called Sealing the Deal. It's in the bank again. And you have these two, I don't want to say bankers, they may be bankers, no. You have these two businessmen sealing the deal, and the ties are made to look like serpents' heads. And this was actually in the vault of the bank. It was a film called Vive le Capitol, which we premiered. And it was bought by a museum in Luxembourg, so it was a really nice the artist. But again, you can see how these sites can come alive by, who'd have thought of being in a bank vault? So it's very exciting. Now I'm going to go on to education. So when I said it's not just about putting an exhibition there, it's really about encouraging programming and encouraging people to feel at home there. So part of our research when we go into every area is we reach out to all the schools and after-school programs and invite the kids, them to bring groups of kids into the exhibition. And I started by saying the museum experience is often about don't. We really try to give the kids a very hands-on experience. So it may be a scavenger hunt to find an artwork, and we have coloring books that are made by artists. Or it's a project. This particular piece was a carpet. In our research, we found that the home, this is the Bronx again, was outfitted with the most incredible carpets and upholstery. So this artist, Federico Uribe, created a carpet with all the things that would have been in the lives of the people. So there's keys down here for the hose that they left, hangers for their clothes, crockery from the plates that they ate on, garden hose for the gardening committee, and of course, the crutches on the outside. It was a fabulous piece, and the kids really, really engaged with it. We have weekly and monthly family days, depending again on the site, where parents engage with art with their children. And this is our youth docent program that I'm really proud of, that our Director of Education founded. So in every site we go into, we invite 6 to 8 high school children to apply to work with us as youth docents. And they literally work with us from the research through the installation to the opening, and then help us guard the spaces. And every week they meet with an educator, and they do programs like media literacy, public speaking, etc. And the program is geared toward them giving their own tours of the exhibition to family and friends. So it's a wonderful way of bringing in another, peer groups, etc. And for the kids itself, the build-up in confidence they get by really mastering a subject is amazing. And those are our youth docents in Queens. You always have to feed them. But we also, and this is important, most of these kids can't afford not to work. So we pay them a $10 an hour stipend, and we really fundraise for that, because otherwise you have to be real. They couldn't do it without. This was a really great one. This is me meeting with these. This is a program we did with Arts Connection. Arts Connection goes into the schools. Don't forget in New York, and I don't know what the reality is here. Arts education has been so dramatically cut, so the private sector is moving in somewhat. And Arts Connection runs a track program where they work either with young writers, young curators, or artists. It's very well funded, and most of the artwork that the kids produce goes into the offices of the funders. For a short period of time. Kids get to go to the opening, but then it stays in these offices. So we invited Arts Connection to come in and work with their exhibition, but gave the kids a site in the exhibition to do their art show. We talked to them about the theme. We had our educator talk to them about, how many of you got a bank account? What was their interaction with banking? Anybody in your family has a bank account? And we really started off with fairly basic things, and then expanded into the theme of the exhibition. And we had 120 artists who submitted to the show from these 6 schools, I believe, we work with. And this young group wanted to be curators of the show, so I worked with them in selecting the works that were going to be in the show, and it was very hard for them to select and reject others. So I worked with them through the process, and then our education person worked with them to write the wall text. And their show within a show, and it was in the bank manager's office, opened the same night as our show. So and all their families came. It was really it was a proud moment, I have to say. And that's the group. And you see the clean carpet and the clean walls. And they worked with us. That place was a rat's hole. Sorry for the language. It was filthy. We tore out the carpet. We painted the walls. And for the kids, it's a great lesson that in a very simple way, you can transform your environment. It was very empowering. And to spread our model. This is now our second version of NLE Lab, and it's a curatorial lab in which 6 to 8 emerging or young curators, or even just curators who want to learn about our practice, go through all the stages of an NLE exhibition: site research, community liaison, developing a theme, picking artists, opening an exhibition, and having one public project. It's really, really intensive, but we've done it, and they do it. I'm going to just stop there with the let's just go back to some of my notes. I want to talk about some of the practical things. So no longer these exhibitions take place in empty or utilized commercial real estate that is situated in populated urban locations. This is the nitty-gritty. The spaces are donated by landlords, rent-free and utilities-free. That's our model. For a period of 3 to 6 months. We have a contract. We do everything really professionally. There is a contract that basically says, because if the property is rented while we're there, we can vacate in 10 days. Of course, that's never the reality because it takes longer than 10 days. But landlords want to be assured that you're not going to squat, that once they let you in, they're going to get you out. We have insurance that covers both building, visitors, liability, and art insurance. So we're really professional and show that we have all this up front. So the 10-day clause. 2 questions immediately arise. Why do landlords give us their properties, and how do we select them? So landlords have become keen to offer no longer to the use of their vacant spaces because they see the model has utility. People give you things because they think they can get something back, basically. So with our constant emphasis on quality, and as you've seen the before and after photographs, we clean, we prep, we paint, we build, and we return the property in a better state condition than it was found. Empty spaces, as I'm sure you all know, can become community liabilities. They lead to vandalism, and they're markers of the reduction of foot traffic on any given street. One store is empty, so there's 5% less foot traffic, and that affects the others, and it really spirals downwards. So reclaiming these empty sites could be a wonderful tool for regeneration of a retail corridor, for example. And currently, while I'm here in Queens, one of my team is working with the Sunnyside Business Improvement District, and helping them put art into some of their restaurants, because they're having a restaurant week to really kind of build up the appeal of that week. So the exhibition's temporary presence reverses the trend, bringing thousands of visitors to the site in the neighborhood. We source all our materials, food, drinks, from the area, so that our presence actually makes a monetary difference to the area. And we work with the local bids, chambers of commerce, and politicians to encourage local support. And our practice also encourages landlords to be aware of their responsibilities in a community regarding empty spaces, and the local recognition they gain from being civic-minded in this way often promotes their generosity to keep the space available for interim use, and I do stress that interim use. I've actually spoken in front of the DCA Cultural Affairs, because I don't think it's something that can be done here, but I would love to see tax relief for landlords who donate their spaces, because it's a donation and they should get credit for it. But also, this happens in Europe, a penalty for keeping a space empty for more than a certain amount of years. I know there's a model in London that, because there was a tendency for people not to rent when rents were low, and so they were keeping the buildings empty. But now there's a penalty. I think it's a 2-year period that they either have to do interim use or rent the site. So let's go back to collaboration. So I've covered education a little bit. When we go into an area, we collaborate with the local community. Part of our research is finding who the dance companies are,